Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.
We believe in this opportunity to work in Web3, and people coming in will be a massive shift.
There's a lot of opportunities that are not, they're lost, and their people's skills and their what they're really capable of doing is not able to be shined through right now.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whoever you are. Thank you for tuning in to Zero Authority Live. We have another great conversation today. We're going to talk to Zach from Meanwhile. Meanwhile has created different life insurance products that are tax advantage way of leveraging their Bitcoin wealth and pass it along to the next generation. They're licensed and regulated. So today we're going to get into many topics. We're going to ask Zach how to define Bitcoin, how to define stacks. We're going to talk about what does it mean to create different kind of products in the insurance space for Bitcoin specific products. We're going to talk about wealth preservation. We're going to talk about some risk mitigation, and first and foremost, on this beautiful Friday, Zach, Huddle Stacks, how are you guys?
I live in Austin, Texas. It's been raining all week. It's not raining now, so I put myself in a good mood. Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's nice fall colors here, abnormally warm in the Mideast here, Virginia. So it's lovely. Looking forward to the weekend. But yeah, was looking forward to this call too. So it's good to have Zach on.
And I'm here. So we have all areas of the states covered today. So I'm here near Portland, Oregon. So I'm far west. Huddle Stacks, you're far east, and then we have Zach smack dab right there in the middle there. So that's awesome today.
You know, we need someone from Denver, but it's pretty good.
We do need some more folks from Denver and around the world. Just a quick reminder. Wanted to remind uh, any of the people listening today that Zero Authority, we have launched our test net, and so you could find our test net at testnet.zeroauthority.xyz. We're going to start rolling out some more testing and ability to create peer-to-peer markets with people who are, if you're looking for someone to do some work with in a trustless, permissionless way, we're going to be rolling that out and more to come soon. Uh, the topic that we're going to get into today, though, is Meanwhile. And Huddle Stacks and I had seen a tweet coming out from Albert at the Bitcoin. Uh, I don't know if it's a Bitcoin Frontier Fund. I know he does a pre-accelerator, and then everything that we've been reading about Meanwhile is pretty interesting. The way you guys are building products and services. Before we get into all of that, Zach, can you tell us a bit about yourself and how did you come to create Meanwhile, and how did you find out about Bitcoin and stacks?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of questions there, but let me talk about, I guess, my journey on Bitcoin. So, in 2012, 2013, I have a sort of a more traditional fintech entrepreneur background. I, moved out to San Francisco, and this is already like 3-4 years in. I think I had heard about Bitcoin, but wasn't really that aware of it. And for me, it was just something like I was talking to friends about and I was learning about. But I wouldn't say it really clicked there. I think for like a lot of people, it wasn't necessarily something that really that I really understood the first 10 times I heard it. So actually, what happened is I built this earlier company called Standard Treasury, and Standard Treasury built what now would be called a banking as a service platform. So we built APIs on top of banks, and then fintechs built on top of us. And we were that company sort of didn't do as well as we would have hoped. It's sort of hard to get banking partnerships, but we had built a lot of great technology. and had a lot of expertise in sort of financial services. So we got a few different offers to buy the company in 2015. And one of those offers was from Coinbase. So the first time I ever actually received Bitcoin was Brian Armstrong, like showing me how Coinbase worked by sending me some Bitcoin. So that was like super fascinating to me. And I basically didn't make it, my vocation until I started Meanwhile, but I'd say it was like a hobby or an avocation. I was reading stuff, paying attention. And I think like a lot of people maybe wish they did. I sort of set up one of those things where I was like, okay, I'll buy like $50 a week forever of Bitcoin because I don't want to think about the price. And that's sort of all I did. On some level, I was, but I think as the ecosystem has evolved, as Bitcoin's become crypto, I think my co-founder and I are both people who sort of see the original promise of Bitcoin, the original opportunities in Bitcoin. I think right now we're seeing, prices go up, and there's a lot of excitement from, BlackRock and ETFs and all this other stuff. And I think that, a lot of that institutional excitement is obviously exciting for everyone else, but I think it sort of comes from a place of, this can be, a store of value or it's gold or whatever. And I think for us, we've always been animated by the sort of potential global reach of digital money, the particular features of Bitcoin. When I read the white paper, go all the way back to that, it's even at its inception talking about like financial inclusion, financial empowerment, like reaching people the world over. And that's something that really animates my co-founder and I. So when we sat down to start this company, and I can tell you a lot more about that, we were actually saying to ourselves, on the one hand, we want to do something with Bitcoin. We want to do something that we think can reach a lot of people. Like what could digital money be used for, globally? And we were trying to look at things like beyond trading and beyond, payments. Like what else could there be? And then on the other hand, we have this background that's like really willing to deal with regulatory BS and real comfort with that. And we sort of, and this was sort of late 2021, and we founded the company in January 2022. And we said to ourselves, and I think this was a counterintuitive or not widely believed idea at the time, which is like, we thought all the value in Bitcoin land is going to come to people in the next decade or 2 decades who can deal with all that regulatory stuff. So that's sort of where we all started. And we were like listing out ideas, and then when it came to life insurance. And then on Stacks, we don't necessarily, I'll tell you all about the company. We don't use Stacks. I think I first heard about, I don't know when I first heard about it, but I think for us, we're definitely, I like to say there are these like 3 different communities in Bitcoin. There's like a community of people who, they're like the miners, and they just want to talk about like the price of electricity, and they're like, just all talk to themselves. And it's really fascinating. Like I live in Austin, so I meet a lot of those people, but like there's a whole community it's all about like that. And there's a second set of people, I think, who want Bitcoin to just stay as it is. And it's gold in the ground. And it's sort of a static thing that'll just, increase in value somehow. And I think that the third community, which is I think the biggest community, like when I go to BTC Miami or whatever, now BTC Nashville, is people who like look out 20 and 30 years and they see that Bitcoin should be like an economy unto itself. And that it should, like, it's this global decentralized currency, and that's going to lead to what I think there'll be like GDP, and there'll be economic activity, and there'll be capital markets, and there'll be debt markets, and there'll be, a labor market, as you guys are building. And, to make those things possible, we have to, I think, be open to innovations and things being built on top. So I've been excited about Stacks. I'm like excited about Lightning. I'm excited about, you know, ordinals. I'm excited about BitVM. You know, we don't necessarily need to use any of those things, but I think like having a robust ecosystem of people who are like innovating on top of Bitcoin and looking to a future where Bitcoin is, you know, powerful and useful. You know, that's the future we're trying to build ourselves to. I rambled there, so.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. You know, just the whole background, your expertise and everything, and kind of the normal fintech world and all of that, and your viewpoint. I think your viewpoint's correct on the different pillars of folks, and I think there are a lot of people that are starting to see, hey, you know, Bitcoin to be used as this, you know, sovereign digital money. That means that we can have a sovereign economy on top of it, and you know, with its unique principles and properties, it yields very interesting business use cases that, you know, is better for the consumer, maybe better for the business. And it's just a materially different world in which we live in. So it's very interesting. You know, I imagine when you guys were going through the different opportunities there are to build on Bitcoin, it's very interesting to think about what it might look like in the future. So I think what you guys are building is a really good pillar to that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think one of the interesting things about running a life insurance company, for better or worse, is you know, life insurance companies have to measure their thinking in decades, hopefully centuries. So like we have already, you know, we already are talking to customers and have customers who their policies will outlive us, right? Just statistically, right? If you sell to a few people who are like even approximately your own age, it's likely that those policies will outlive you. So, you know, I think the nice thing about that is, you know, over the course of running this company in the last, you know, I guess almost 2 years, you know, the quote unquote price of Bitcoin has been 60,000. It's been 15,000. It's been, you know, now it's 35,000. And, you know, I don't think any of that matters. I mean, I'm sure it matters. It matters to my emotions. It matters to a lot of people's emotions and our feelings. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build a company that looks out 5, 10, 50 years. And we see that they're, you know, for us, it's clear that Bitcoin will exist, which I don't think you can say about everything else in crypto, and that Bitcoin will be durable, and that we think it's only going to grow. And I don't mean just grow in quote unquote value or like exchange rate with the dollar. I mean, it's going to grow in like what people do on it, what people are trying to, what people can achieve with it, like how much economic activity is happening in Bitcoin. And those are all both things that we're trying to create in the world, and things that you know, our company will benefit from existing.
Zach, you have a really interesting background, and I didn't know a lot of that. I when I saw the some of the information coming out from Albert and the pre-accelerator, and then I started reading on what Meanwhile is trying to do. I thought this is going to make sense, especially as millennials start to age, because there's a difference between boomers and millennials. Boomers, they love gold, and you know, vice versa. Millennials love Bitcoin. Now there are some millennials who hold gold, and that's great too. There's some boomers who hold Bitcoin, and that's great. Over time, we do believe, Huddle Stacks and I, we believe this Bitcoin economy will continue to emerge, and those cohorts that you had mentioned are, that's an interesting way to think about it. A lot of people forget about the miners, that if you're so focused on kind of the usability and creating applications on top of the layer twos, you kind of forget down in the layers of Bitcoin, there are people who use physical electricity to do things, and they need, you know, renewable power sources.
Maybe this is about being in Texas versus not, because there's a whole electricity market here. So like I mean, all sorts of people in mining, you know, people who stranded flare gas, you know, buying off ergot. It's a whole thing down here. But but yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about that. Like sometimes people are
Yeah.
talking to me about like the megawatt hour, and I'm like, got it.
Well, you mentioned ordinals. Like ordinals, to take it a couple steps back, Bitcoin taught me more about macro finance, about lending, about yield curves than I had ever learned in college in textbooks. And then ordinals had taught me about how does UTXO work? How does like this spent
Yeah.
unspent transactions works? And then like now we have this whole market for rare satoshis. So like things like I never thought like it that I'd see this in my lifetime. It just keeps evolving and it just continues to go forward. How did you? So it's interesting that you're doing insurance in Bitcoin. What brought you to do insurance? Was there
Yeah.
a use case where you said, you know, this should exist and I need this for myself, or did you have some buddies or some family members?
Yeah, I would say that we do life insurance, and on some intellectual level, what I would say is that life insurance is this core financial product, and we don't think of it that way because I think it's like become needlessly complicated. But on some level, like life insurance is about like what happens to my loved ones if I die before I'm supposed to. And an annuity, which is the other thing that life insurance companies do, is sort of like what happens to my loved ones if I live longer than I'm supposed to. So actually, like some of the oldest savings products in the world, like from Venice and and Genoa and stuff 500 years ago, are these life insurance products, and burial insurance and savings products. I think that so the story I tell now is very much like this is a core financial need. We want to build the world's largest life insurance company. Although right now it's primarily Americans who are coming to us to buy, which we can talk about why that is. But like our ultimate vision is if you look out over the the world, like there's like 57 countries right now who have inflation rates over 10%. We think that if you're middle class or middle class, whatever, in any one of those countries, you probably should have a life insurance policy. Again, this like core financial need in Bitcoin rather than your local currency, right? So that's our like big ultimate vision. Now, what actually happened of how we thought of this idea is like we were ideating all sorts of ideas, and then I literally woke up in the middle of the night at like 1 a.m. one day and was like, there should be a life insurance company in Bitcoin. And then I like wrote what became the memo we originally like raised the first like pre-seed or whatever tranche one of capital on, like basically that entire night. So it just seemed obvious to us, and we kept at it because I think it's it just continues to be interesting, continues to be a powerful idea. And I guess I should explain what we're actually doing, but ultimately I think what we saw is that the culture of hodling, the culture of holding Bitcoin and thinking about the long term and thinking about intergenerational wealth, like that's very well aligned with having a life insurance company and thinking about protecting your family and thinking about passing on part of your stack to beneficiaries. So I think there's a real alignment for us between like the ethos of Bitcoin and the idea of this long-term product.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you had a good segue there. If you want to just dive in and give us I have some Bitcoin. I'm interested in life insurance or whatnot. What other products you guys have? If you want to give us a run through of, kind of what offerings you have today and how it works, that'd be great.
Yeah. So what we do, basically, we are a registered and licensed life insurance company in Bermuda. Let me start by saying Bermuda is not the Bahamas, which is where FTX was. Also not Barbados. Bermuda is like an insurance capital of the world. Some of like 70% of the GDP of Bermuda is insurance. They know a lot about insurance. And increasingly, it's becoming a place where there's also a lot of crypto. So Coinbase's offshore operations are based in Bermuda. Now their offshore exchange related in Bermuda. Square Cash's offshore crypto is in Bermuda. So we were really attracted to this being a regulator who understood the Bermuda Monetary Authority, understood crypto, but also understood insurance really deeply. And that definitely made it take longer for us to set up the company because they had and have very high expectations. But it also, I think, means their users can trust that we are like actually doing things pretty well. So we have a life insurance company. And the way we talk to the regulator about this company is we said we're going to do everything in like relatively boring ways. Like we're going to do underwriting in a pretty normal way. We're going to do reserving in a pretty normal way. We're going to do, we're going to do claims in a pretty normal way. And you should just look at us and like think about a company, and it could be in dollars or euros or yen or Swiss francs, and it just like is in Bitcoin. So what that means is that we denominate the entire company in Bitcoin. So we take premiums in Bitcoin, we pay out all our claims in Bitcoin, and then we do everything in between in Bitcoin. So we like state our financials in Bitcoin. We do our solvency calculations in Bitcoin. We make all our regulatory filings stayed in Bitcoin. So what that means is that, again, the price of the quote unquote, the exchange rate or the price of Bitcoin over the last year has fluctuated a lot. But from our perspective, like nothing's changed because basically like people pay premiums in Bitcoin and then we, we pay all the claims in Bitcoin. So like our whole balance sheet, all our assets and liabilities are just like matched in Bitcoin. So the price of Bitcoin doesn't really matter. And then with that, what we do is we currently only have one product, and it's called limited pay whole life. So what's that? What does that mean? Whole life is insurance that lasts your whole life. And what's important about that is, I hope I'm not the bearer of bad news for anyone, but we will all eventually die. So because the policy lasts your entire life, that means that at some point there will be a payout. So there's another type of life insurance that people are usually more familiar with, which is called term life. It lasts a term. So it might like be 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. But what happens for most people is that they just live, which is a good thing, and then they never get paid out. Whereas our product, you could think of it, a little bit, protection is the most important thing, but like it's a savings product or sort of a quasi intergenerational wealth investment product, because no matter what happens, eventually you'll die and your beneficiaries will get this payout. So, and then it's limited pay in that you have an option to either sort of prepay up front, or you can pay in 10 equal installments. So what a policy might look like is you might pay us 1 Bitcoin a year for 10 years. So there's like, you pay over 10 years, equal installments, limited pay. And then we make some promise that when you die, which again, hopefully will be in a long time, we will pay out some fixed amount, and that fixed amount depends on your age and your gender, or your age and your sex and your like whether you smoke or not. But you can think of it something like you put in 10 and we promise you 20. And how that, and that's basically the whole thing. You give us 10, we promise you 20, and then we're like incredibly well regulated. And that, I guess what I'll say, because you're like, well, how do you turn 10 into 20? So I'm very upfront that we do like all the things in Bitcoin that people are uncomfortable with. So first off, people pay their premiums. They're sending us our Bitcoin. So we use Anchorage as our custodian, which I a lot of people are comfortable with, but like it is not a self-custody product. You send us a certain amount of Bitcoin that you're paying your premiums. And then, so that's the first thing that like can be uncomfortable. The second thing is we hypothecate everyone's Bitcoin together, right? So we make a promise to you, a contractual promise, and we have an enterprise risk management framework, and I have an independent board in Bermuda, and I have a regulator, and there's all these controls, and we can talk all about that. But at the end of the day,
I'm curious, did you put in more controls after the whole kind of FTX blow up and all the blowups we've seen, or have you always thought about risk management, financial controls?
Oh yeah, we had to think about this from the very beginning.
Because Huddle Stacks and I, from day one when we accepted grant money, we've always set up a legal structure, actually having separate accounts and wanted to have controls in place. So I'm just curious about, since you're going to take.
Oh, I have also, yeah, we actually have, I forget how many, we have like an enterprise risk management policy, a financial risk management policy, an underwriting risk management policy, like third party, and then each of these policies has a bunch of controls, and then we had to implement those controls. And some of these things are like just like things financial institutions do. Like we have a really robust like KYC, AML, ATF regime. So it'd be hard for Huddle Stacks to buy a policy without letting us know his name. Yeah, like I have a chief risk officer. Like this is like we're not many people. We're 7 people, but like we're running a full life insurance company. I joke that we have all the challenges of a life insurance company and all the challenges of a crypto company.
So did you guys start this year, or were you already operating as a company and then decided to let's also create a product that's crypto specific?
Oh no, we from the very beginning, we started in January 2022, but we knew from the start we were going to do a Bitcoin life insurance company. And then it took us about a year, like almost exactly a year, like on December 30th, 2022, we got approval from the Bermuda Monetary Authority. And that was like with a plan to do things. And then we launched in June, which is when we announced the company. And the 6 months there was like implementation. So I had to have a bunch of board meetings. We had to set up all this enterprise risk management. We every time we write a policy, we have to put up capital. So you're like, that's how insurance companies work. So we had to figure out what our called our reserves are going to be. Like we had to do all this work. We had to do all the, set up all the AML, ATF procedures. So there was a ton of, there was like getting licensed for a year, and then there was like mobilization and operationalization, and then we've started to sell policies.
Is there a reason why you set up in Bermuda versus the US? Is it the regulatory framework right now doesn't exist in the US?
I think that's absolutely right. I think what's nice about Bermuda is, as I said, they're a very well-regarded, well-respected regulatory environment, and they know a lot about insurance. But I think they are willing to be innovative, and Bermuda is sort of an offshoot of the UK. And one of the nice things about those regulatory regimes is it's called a prudential regulatory regime. So they're much more concerned about. It's not like there are actually a lot of rules, but it's not that they're say here's a list of rules, comply with them. They're willing to have a conversation with you about how you set that up. So to your point, though, although we're domiciled in Bermuda, that's where the company is. People in the United States have a right to buy life insurance from basically whoever they want. So what we've done is we've designed the policies to comply with all the like IRS rules and the US tax rules and all this stuff. So people in the US can come to our website. They can like learn about the policy however they learn about it. and then they can opt into buying a product from us. So even though we're not regulated in the U.S. and we don't really do a lot of active sales in the U.S., primarily it's people in the U.S. with the low U.S. taxes who opt to like come and buy the policies.
Yeah, I think it's really smart. If someone is kind of bought in on Bitcoin being, very hard money that is going to be going up versus U.S. dollar and other dollars around the world. If you're a Bitcoiner, everyone has the inevitable worry of death, and maybe it happens sooner than they anticipate. And if they just have a traditional life insurance policy, they're going to be worried about, what are these dollars that maybe my family would get? What is that really going to be able to buy? What's that really going to be able to do?
Exactly.
And then at the same time, how you guys are set up, it sounds like, is everything that you guys have in your books and how you run is all on Bitcoin, so you don't have to worry about what is we're getting paid in dollars, and worrying about if you have price swings and things like that. And at that point, then you get to run the equations just like a normal kind of life insurance company, and make sure that you guys are profitable and all that. And it's all on the Bitcoin standard, so your customers don't necessarily have to worry about exposure to normal currencies. It's a good offering, and it seems like people that are on that path, I bet they would be really interested. So
that's exactly right. And I think that what excites us about the company is that it's resonating with customers. As I said, I think you have to like get over the obviously the last few years not in Bitcoin really, but in crypto have obviously seen a lot of frauds, a lot of Ponzi's, a lot of whatever. So I think we really go to great pains from the very start of the company, which Zero, to your point, was 9-10 months before FTX blew up. So it was maybe a against the grain idea, and we were like from the very beginning, like, we're going to be regulated, we're going to have segregated accounts, we're going to go get this boring custodian that's well regarded in Anchorage, we're going to do everything right. And then the product we're selling, I joke it's from like the 1830s. Like, we're not trying to trick anyone or do anything super complicated. We're really trying to do like the first, to our knowledge, we're the first life insurance company, the first people doing anything in life insurance that's in Bitcoin, really any digital asset. And that's part of our pitch is if your intention was to have a portion of your Bitcoin that you're gonna hodl it forever, you think of it as intergenerational wealth, like, you should use this this structure that protects your family, has some implicit rate of return inside it, and by the way, has, like all whole life policies of all kinds, has some real tax advantages. And to your point, Halistax, I think what the denomination is not just a way to like protect against currency risk, but it actually just made everything a lot simpler and like solved all these problems. Because like the US tax code, for example, there are all these rules about like what is and isn't life insurance, and like there's like all these just fancy things about the actuarial math. And it was like vastly simplified by just saying like, well, it's Bitcoin in and Bitcoin out. Everything's in Bitcoin. Because otherwise you have to like worry about like, what's the dollar versus Bitcoin? Are you complying with these rules? And like, and we think it may be impossible. Like, we're not sure that, whatever big incumbent life insurance company could even possibly do this. I think it would be very hard from a capital perspective, but even just like making the math, the actuarial math work out can be difficult. So I think by starting from this first principle of like, hey, wait, there should be a life insurance company for the Bitcoin economy. We should just do everything in Bitcoin. We should just state everything in Bitcoin. We should have all our contracts entirely in Bitcoin. I think that made it a lot easier, actually.
Hey, Zach, if that's interesting, if you're doing everything, I'm probably not everything on the Bitcoin standard, do you even pay your employees with Bitcoin?
Some of them, we haven't gotten everyone to agree to that yet. So what the way you should think about it is we have like a holding company, which is where investors have invested and they've invested dollars, and then and that's in the US. And then we have this operating company, and the operating company, everything's kept in Bitcoin. And then it has certain expenses that it pays. But as long as Bitcoin doesn't go to some absurdly low price, like something we haven't seen in a really long time, it can like cover its basic regulatory expenses, even though obviously like our lawyer in Bermuda only takes dollars. Because I think the important thing is when you're running an insurance company is people are giving you money and then you're making promises to them. And by keeping all of the money we receive and all of the promises in the same thing, you're avoiding like the really wild swings you might have. We do, have to like pay employees and some lawyers and stuff in dollars, but that's a like de minimis compared to, all the Bitcoin we owe all of our policyholders. And at the end of the day, that's the thing that we're most concerned about. Is the thing our regulators are most concerned about is like that consumer protection or making sure that policyholders are, get what they're promised. And everything is sort of set up to ensure that.
From an accounting perspective, does it make it difficult? Like, if you're on the GAAP accounting basis and you have to do your standard principles, accounts payables, accounts receivable, does it make it difficult to be on the somewhat of a Bitcoin standard and do your financials?
So it doesn't make it difficult to do the financials of our insurance company because it doesn't really have a requirement to do GAAP financials. We do like a GAAP variant that the Bermuda Monetary Authorities approved in our what are called our statutory financials. So that actually isn't that hard. But what is going to be hard, which I will not bore you with, is calculating our fiat corporate tax liability, because that is like quasi GAAP. And the real answer there is that we are gonna have to figure it out because no one really knows. Because when you run an insurance company, you get all these benefits because like in the sense that people are paying premiums, and then you hold a bunch of that premium as what's called reserve because you have to like pay them in the future. And that reserve isn't revenue for obvious reasons because you need it to pay out the claims. So there are all these insurance rules, but then there's like, Bitcoin's property. And those things like can create some weird counterintuitive results. But no one should. It's a very operational nitty gritty. I think that I don't know if it's true. It'd be interesting to have a whole conversation with folks. Like, I think we're the only like company in the world who is stating their financials in Bitcoin. Like our whole balance sheet, it's in Satoshis. You know what I mean? Like in the corner, it says BTC. There's like no dollars. Like literally that our bookkeeper produces and that our,
Okay,
people consume.
Tell us a little bit more. So you got to repeat that here for people, because I'm pretty sure people are going to tune in just for that fact alone here.
Yeah. So like every quarter we produce financial statements that has our assets, our it's actually not that our assets are Bitcoin. Our assets are the like things we do with Bitcoin and investments we make and stuff like that. And our liabilities are, we have to reserve all this Bitcoin for to pay out claims, and then like there's capital, which is like the money we put up, or equity capital or shareholder capital. It's a very normal balance sheet in general, and then there's just nuances for being an insurance company. And then the way we do that is we don't go like look at the price of Bitcoin in dollars. We state the whole thing in Bitcoin to the whatever it is, the 9th decimal point or the 8th decimal point. So it's in Satoshis. So to simplify, like our assets are 100 Bitcoin, our liabilities are 90 Bitcoin, and our shareholder equity is 10 Bitcoin. And so it's like looking at a normal financial statement. It's just entirely in Bitcoin.
Yeah, that from a standpoint of you guys running the account, that's just got to be so exciting. You guys are living in the future, really. Oh, yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. Like again, my day to day, I joke that I feel like I'm running a risk management company with a thin veneer of talking to people about life insurance on top. But I think that's exactly what the space needs, right? Is like we're insurance companies. It sounds crazy to insurance folks that I'm like, we're running a very conservative company. We're running a very trying to run a very boring insurance company. And they're like, but it's in crypto, so it like can't possibly be conservative or boring. But I think the point is to come from the other direction, that like I think what Bitcoin land needs and crypto land needs a little bit more of is people who are building boring conservative things. And we see life insurance itself as a slightly boring conservative product, but then life insurance companies are, you're trying to think for the really long term. You're trying to measure the work you do in decades. You're trying to make choices along the way that are not about necessarily making more Satoshis today, but are having many Satoshis in the future. And I'll admit, as a startup guy, like some months I'm like, I wish we could move faster, but I think it's the right long-term choice, both for us and for the space, to, have spent months of my life on anti-money laundering operations.
So something that's interesting about this product specifically, now that I have one kid and one on the way, is I think about the passing of wealth, or looking at estate planning. That's something that caught my attention with just kind of doing the whole life insurance with Bitcoin. Could you talk more to that aspect of like how someone could use estate planning and a product like this?
Yeah. Well, I should start by saying I'm not your financial advisor, nor am I your estate lawyer. But what I will say is, look, Whole Life is a product that when you're a person and you've like maxed out your let's just take in fiat land. If you've like maxed out your 401k and you've, done your, self-directed IRA and you've done your 527, like actually like whole life insurance is like one of the next products that, people start using for financial planning. And there's a few reasons that is. Like one is, this is just true of all whole life, that, there's protection. What if you die before you're supposed to? Like it pays out. The second is there's some guaranteed or variable. In our case, it's guaranteed, but there's some like rate of return. That rate of return is better than you could get on your own because it's like compounding inside the policy, tax free. So there's sort of like that benefit. The third benefit is, and this is just true of all whole life, is that you can borrow money out of the policy tax free. So in our case, using a policy loan. So in our case, what that looks like is you might have put that 10 Bitcoin in, 1 Bitcoin a year for 10 years. We're now in year 15. If you wanted to borrow 1 Bitcoin back from us, it's like you're getting a new Bitcoin with a new tax basis. So that if Bitcoin then is at 350,000 or 3.5 million, then that might be really advantageous. And you don't have to act, even though it is a loan, you don't have to pay back the loan, because at the end of when you die, the loan is netted against your death benefit. So there's also this like optional liquidity. I really don't like these terms, but life insurance agents will use all these terms like be your own bank or self-banking. And like what that really boils down to is there's like optional tax-free liquidity from these policies. Again, that's true of all whole life policies. It just happens to also be true of ours. And the fourth thing about estate planning is it really depends what you're trying to do, in the sense of like people, there's just like the normal tax benefits of insurance around, the gains not being taxed and the compounding and all this stuff. There's another thing that people do, which is that they like you own a trust that's not part of your estate, and then you put a whole life policy inside that trust. Again, that really depends on like whether you are going to owe estate tax, or again, that's like a very personal situation, and people should go talk to an estate lawyer. But these are the things that people use these types of policies for. And at the end of the day, what's been interesting about this company is we actually have like two different sets of users, right? So we have like people on this video call, which is like crypto natives. You're getting married, you're having kids. I think that's just true of a lot of people, right? So if you think about like there's this whole generation of mostly guys in their 20s who were into crypto, and now they're like aging into having kids, or getting married or having kids. And we're sort of coming along and saying like, hey, like we're building a life insurance institution that's like for you. It like speaks your language. It's in this asset that you care about. Baby boomers care about gold and the S&P 500. Like we care about Bitcoin. So that's one aspect. And then I educate those people on like just the aspect of life insurance or whole life or why people buy it. And there's this other community of people who, are rich for other reasons and have crypto, and they already know about the whole life, and they're sort of like, oh, well, maybe this is a good way to hodl crypto or hodl Bitcoin, so I'm not like looking at the price every day. It's almost like helping people make that choice. So I think that's we try to serve both those groups of people. And I should say, I apologize. I have to go pick my children up from school at the hour-long mark here.
I was going to say we're at time. One quick thing. I really like this tweet that you guys had. I will die, but I want to secure my family. Great attitude. Meanwhile, so great tweets that you guys been putting out. Great content. Looking forward to seeing the journey of this company. And Zach, thanks so much for coming on 030 Live today, just giving us a rundown of what Meanwhile is and how we could think about long-term preservation of passing our capital down to our families and our kids. So thanks so much for jumping on today, and we're excited for what you guys are building.
Great. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation. And
where can people find you guys again?
Yeah, as you put up on the screen a few times, we're at meanwhile.bm, which is the Bermuda TLD. And you can learn more in there. And then literally right now, I jump on the phone with every single person who wants a policy, because people tend to have a lot of questions. So always eager to chat with folks.
Well, thanks so much, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great conversation, and really excited what you guys are doing too. I think what you're building, like you said, some people might consider it kind of boring, but I think it's really necessary. And I don't know, it's just kind of a beautiful thing. People building things that are very rigorous and very strong for the future. So yeah, pleasure talking with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, you two. Cheers.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.